This episode of Going Forward is brought to you by Optimizer, an award-winning PPC management tool used by advertisers worldwide. Save time and boost the performance of your PPC campaigns on Facebook, Amazon, and Google or Microsoft. Get a 14-day free trial at optimizer.com/go/VIP.
You're listening to the AdCast with your host, Eric Elliott.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited to talk to you today. I have a genius on the line today with me, a genius, a creator. And we're going to have some great topics today, great topics of discussion today when it comes to marketing. I have Mr. Alex Makarski with me today. And some of you guys around the world may know him. If not, you've heard of his products, you've heard of his companies. But I want to give Alex that opportunity to kind of tell people exactly who he is, what he does, and then we're going to go right into it, Alex.
Well, I'm just going to get into an argument with you right away. I'm not a genius. I'm just too dumb to quit. Too dumb to quit. Let's keep going.
I like that. So too dumb to quit. I think any of us who are in marketing, man, we're crazy. We're out of our minds, man.
Yeah,
especially
totally.
with the way things are turning out today. You know, you have kind of a unique, interesting turn because a lot of people, they say they stumble, into marketing. But I mean, you were an engineer, and then you kind of turned into marketing, and then you ended up finding, clickmakers.io. So tell me a little bit about Clickmakers.
Well, the inception story is probably something I need to dive a little bit into. So yes, I was an engineer. I had a successful career in the software space. I had clients like McDonald's, Procter & Gamble, Siemens, Colgate. We built some information marketing systems for those big companies, like databases. Like before there was a term big data, we were already building something along the lines of big data analysis, that kind of stuff. It's just crazy how things come around and like resemble what you used to do 20 years ago. Like we do the similar kind of thing in marketing now. But
yeah,
anyway,
history repeats itself, Alex.
It not necessarily repeats itself, but certainly rhymes. Like there's a lot of similarities. After I quit my job, I bumbled around. I thought I was going to be a consultant to small businesses. So I started studying marketing books and failed miserably. I remortgaged my house twice, like in that period I call the dark ages. But somewhere in there, I co-founded the local business with a friend of mine. We were having beers, and he's quite a bit younger than me, so college was more recent for him than me. He's like, well, when I was in college, like I would make a few $100s like in an evening by just placing an ad on Craigslist and hanging a couple of TVs for people. And that's when flat screen TVs appeared, right?
Yeah.
And he goes like, do you think this can be a business? I'm like, I have no idea, but I have this $100 from Google, like free $100 to run the ads. I'll build a page. I'll run some ads. We'll see if we can break even. We broke even the first week. We made a profit the first month. We remained profitable for the entire duration of that business as we were in it. And it was pretty much turnkey. Like I spent a bunch of time building pages, writing content, doing SEO, conversion tracking, call tracking, the whole 9 yards. Like I basically built the whole thing. And we were the only people who doing it at any level of sophistication. That market did not exist. Then a bunch of other guys started copying us. But basically my job was lead gen, generating leads, making phones ring. And my partner's job was scheduling, the guys driving around the city with screwdrivers and, drilling holes in people's walls and putting TVs up on the wall. And while I was trying to build other things, so I had this little thing going on the side, and some months that was the only income I had, was coming from this. Like I would lose money on some MLM deals or affiliate marketing deals or some other, crazy stuff that I would try. But this thing was just, there would be, car payment. Some months there would be mortgage payment. And I didn't have to do anything with it that month. It just kept, generating leads and producing income. So long story short, after a few years, we sold it to one of our workers. We had the residential division and the commercial division. So my former business partner bought me out from the commercial part of the business, and we sold residential to one of our guys. And we're still all friends. We invest in real estate together. We're still like everyone's happy about that transaction years later, which was just pretty amazing. So meanwhile, I had a client in the Silicon Valley that was a software startup, a bunch of propeller head developers, super smart guys. Me doing marketing, I was their marketing department as a contractor, and the CEO doing sales. That was the startup. They got Series A funded. They were looking for Series B. They were in the cloud computing space with clients like Netflix and Cisco, and really interesting software. But the marketing department was this guy right here, right? So they were looking for Series B. Instead of finding an investor, they find a buyer. So a company called Brocade buys them. They were a $2 billion company each time. So big company buys the little company. Everyone gets a big bonus. I get fired because I was a contractor. And by the way, that's a recurring theme with my agency as well. Like we get fired a bunch of times because we help clients get to point B, A to point B. And I don't get upset about this at all because I understand I'm there for a part of their journey. And at some point, someone big is going to pick them up, and they will have a big marketing department that will want to take a lot of this stuff in-house. So that's a great outcome. That's what we're shooting for, right? So the trick is to have a bunch of them that you can work with at a time. So that back then it was just me, I didn't have a team. So when I get fired, I'm like, well, gee, that's not very good,
Right.
You did a good job,
I mean, think of all the sacrifices that you made, though. I mean, Alex, now being fired and all that other stuff, and still having that attitude to go on. What kind of lessons did you get out of all of that, Alex?
Oh, plenty. First of all, you cannot have all your eggs in one basket, right? Secondly, like it actually helps to have a team around you. That was the inception of ClickMakers. I was kind of okay. I don't want to say I was great. I wasn't. But I was okay. And I was okay in multiple departments. I was able to juggle a bunch of different balls and spin a bunch of places at the same time. But when you replace your okay skill with someone's amazing talent, then things just open up and explode. And this is
wow.
So when I realized I need to have a bunch of clients that I'm working with, and I enjoy doing strategy. I enjoy talking about big picture stuff, not doing the actual marketing work. I could do it, I just didn't enjoy it anymore. I realized I can find people way smarter than me, way more capable than me, to do all these different jobs, and that's pretty much how it happened. Just gradually, I started hiring people, and we grew. So we've grown like a pretty amazing clip. Like in the last 3 years, like we've grown over 100% every year. Like basically doubled revenue.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It is, yeah.
Now, especially you and I talked about this before the call, before we actually started up. Now, and I want to jump back into that history lesson on how you got to where you are now. But there's so many things happening right now in marketing. You have all of the AI talk. I mean, every blog or every LinkedIn post I see, it's something about AI or Chat GPT and CRMs. I mean, what is your thought? I mean, I know I have my thoughts on AI, but what does AI mean? Let's talk about to marketing right now. What does AI mean to marketing right now?
It means a lot of things. We've been dealing with AI as media bias. We've been dealing with some version of machine learning. I don't want to call it AI yet. Let's call it machine learning. I think that's a more appropriate term for what we're dealing with right now.
Okay.
I'm sure the real AI is somewhere in the near future. It's probably around the corner. We'll get there soon. But we've been dealing with some version of machine learning since about 2016. When Google introduced smart bidding, Google calls everything that is automated, we call it smart. We like to add not so in front, but that's what Google calls it. So Google automated bidding first, then there was targeting, and then there was the actual ad creatives that Google is automating using machine learning, and then all other ad networks they're following in the same direction. They're doing similar things. Facebook has their version of machine learning. Pinterest has their version of machine learning. All the programmatic tools, the DSPs have their own machine learning built into the platforms. So we've been working with some version of machine learning for a long time. This is not new. What's new is how many more things we can do with it now that ChatGPT is out, or GPT-4 just came out. There's so many creative tasks that can be automated. There's so much research that can be automated. Like we're becoming way more productive as marketers. So I liken it to the introduction of a tractor to agriculture 100 years ago.
Absolutely. Or the calculator.
Right, the calculator. That it took hundreds of people before calculators, hundreds of people with rulers and pencils to calculate how to get to the moon. I remember. So they have the rocket garden in Cape Canaveral, right? So when you go there, you look. There's a shuttle. You can walk into a shuttle. You can see it's a computer. Well, this computer runs on. It was before the invention. No, I think transistor was invented by then. But basically, this thing is like it's dumber than. It's dumber than your refrigerator today.
It needs a human.
It's just amazing, and this technology was able to fly into outer space and do all these amazing things. It is pretty amazing. But the point is that there's quantitative change in efficiency, in speed, in the amount of calculations you can do, but there's also qualitative change now, because this quantitative change is the amount of something. There's emergent properties of this change that we're not even capable of predicting. We don't know what's going to happen, what's going to look like. Like we all thought that when robots appeared, they will just, they will be around us sweeping floors and making breakfast for us, scrambled eggs,
The Jetsons. Like the cartoon, the Jetsons.
That's what we thought was gonna happen. Instead, the robots came for our creative jobs, right? But it is the basic mechanical, not very creative types of jobs that are being wiped out. It's much like, again, going back to the introduction of the tractor to agriculture. You had thousands and thousands. There was like 95% of the population was engaged in some form of agriculture, was engaged in growing food.
Right.
Back a couple of centuries ago. You introduce a tractor. You don't need as many people to walk behind as many oxes or as many cows or horses plowing the field.
Yep.
Now you couldn't just forget about how to grow food all of a sudden, right? You still have to know when to plant.
Yes.
How to treat it, how to treat the how to aerate it, how to fertilize it, how to weed it, and all this kind of stuff. You still have to know all this stuff. But now you also need to know how to change the tire and how to fix the clutch and all this other tractor maintenance stuff that you didn't need to know about before. So again, putting you back in the time capsule and moving you back into today, we as marketers, now we need to understand how to be a little bit like data scientists. We need to understand how to be a little bit like data engineers.
Interesting.
We need to understand how to connect all these Frankenstein monsters of websites and make the data go from point A to point B to point C to point Z.
Yep.
Because this is the food for the AI is going to do the job for you now. You need to train it, and you train it like a feral animal. In machine learning, it's called reinforcement learning, right? And it's like dog training. You get a puppy in the house, and you want this puppy to crap outside, not on the carpet in your living room, right? So what we do as marketers is a little bit outdated, because a lot of things that we do in digital marketing got passed to us from the days of direct mail and print advertising.
Right.
And for a while, like for about 15 years, it's been okay. Like you could take those old practices and just transfer them over to this new medium, and they would more or less work until we delegated the important job of bidding, because each ad impression is an auction. It's a real-time auction, and like we used to make these decisions about how much each auction or each um, um, set of auctions would be worth to us. Like we would decide this audience on this device for this keyword, is worth this much to us. So if someone's looking for this on the computer, it's worth like maybe $2 an impression, and if it's on the phone, it's only worth $1 an impression.
Right, like keyword planning.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
when
you plan it ahead of time. You set the parameters. You launch this thing, and you let it run, and you get feedback. You just launched again, right? So you go through the cycle. That changed with the introduction of smart bidding. Like I mentioned that about 10 years, well, not about 8 years ago, we got introduced to the first version of machine learning in our profession, which is smart bidding. So that means that we're delegating the job of adjusting the bid, deciding how much to bid on this impression to the computer, to the machine, the robot, if you will, and the computer makes this decision in those milliseconds as the web page is loading on the user's device, right? So the page is loading. There's a bunch of auctions going on behind the scenes. The machine is deciding who to bring into this auction, gets to enter the room where they raise their sign and say, hey, I'm willing to bid $3 on this impression. So decides who to invite, and then who gets to show up. If you win this auction, your ad is shown, right? And that is based on literally thousands of signals. It's not just a set of fixed variables that have been predefined, premeditated, pre-configured in the boardroom. These signals happen right there inside the auctions in those milliseconds. So me sitting at my home on my desktop, getting this ad is a different value, represents a different value to an advertiser than the same person, me, standing in line at the 7-Eleven trying to pay for my gas.
Correct.
I'm just killing time there, right, on my phone, and I'm seeing the same ad for the same offer. It's the same me, same demographics, same exact person. But now, in that context, I represent a different value. So all these parameters, those are called signals. And the ad network has access to thousands of those signals that we as human media buyers do not get to see at all. Like those signals are available inside this auction.
A lot, we're using instinct and our experience to be able to make the decision, while the computer has those variables, like you said, we don't see and we can't see.
But also, we cannot be sitting there in those milliseconds. We cannot be inside each auction, right? So that's a pretty major paradigm shift in the way we run advertising compared to the days of direct mail and print ads, right? You don't make decisions in bulk anymore. Each auction is individualized and customized based on those many signals. So what we do then is we need to train. So basically, have an army of robots going into those auctions and bidding on your behalf, raising those signs. Hey, I want this impression. Give me this impression.
Yeah.
We need to train this army of robots to go into those auctions and make good decisions for us. So the question is, how do we train those things now, right? It's not just, hey, we want to buy these auctions. We're going to go to these auctions.
Yeah.
You don't get to go there. Your robots get to go there. So you have to train them, right? So going back to the metaphor of the puppy in the house, what we do as media buyers these days, especially when it comes to lead generation. So you have someone fill out the form or place a phone call, and then a sale will happen, like maybe days or weeks or months, sometimes years later. So how do you know the value of this lead? So back from the direct mail days, we would say, well, we're going to mail this demographic segment. It's going to cost us $10,000, just using round numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to receive 100 responses, right? So that each response is $100. So those are leads, right? We're going to make some sales, right? So let's say we spend $10,000, we made $20,000 in revenue. So each lead is worth about $200 to us. We just average it out.
Right. Right.
Logical, right? The problem is that's not exactly true. There's out of those 100 leads we've got, there's one lead that's worth $20,000 to us,
Yep.
and 99 that are worth exactly zero.
Yes.
Or a negative amount, right? The problem is we can't tell which one is which until
you sift
we
through
make
them.
revenue, we make bank, right?
Yeah.
So when things are constant, when each auction is more or less the same, when you don't get to, like, I mean, the postal stamp is going to cost you the same amount of money. Like back in the day, I don't know how much postal stamp was, 30 cents
Let's
maybe?
just like 30 cents back then. You could buy a whole book back then for $4.
Each auction, each impression is going to cost us 30 cents regardless, right? We don't get to say, well, this postal code we'll have to pay $30 per, and this neighborhood when we're gonna get to pay 3 cents. That doesn't happen in the physical, like in the direct mail medium world.
Yeah.
Transfer it over to the digital world we're in right now, and this auction is different value based on, like, each impression is different value. So now you can't just say, well, we don't care which lead we get. The cold leads are worth $200 to us,
right?
Because if you do, what happens is Google or Facebook or Twitter ads, like what Reddit ads, they'll more or less use a similar algorithm. They will use the path of least resistance. They will say, hey, he liked this lead I gave him, but this lead came from the cheap auction. Like, instead of going into the expensive, high intent, high value auction, which is very hard to win, I can just go into a bunch of cheap auctions with a bunch of.
We'll give them the remnant. We're giving them remnant stuff. But let me ask you this. I mean, you bring up a great point. But since Google, we're speaking. Let's just use Google for example. Like, they started launching the LSAs, the local service ads, to possibly help combat some of that, where people are like, now Google's saying, like, okay, you only pay for what is a lead versus getting the remnant inventory or the cheap click. Let's call it the cheap click. This is some form of the machine learning, and we're not off the AI topic yet, but this is some form of machine learning. Do you feel this is what inspired Google to say, let's create another avenue, the Google local service ads, where we guarantee these we guarantee these vendors that we're serving because we inspect them, look at their insurance documents, and so on and so forth. So we're going to serve these people as the cream of the crop to get the leads.
There's so many directions we could go in here, but here's what's going on here, and it's going across all media networks, that all mature media networks, and Google is becoming increasingly more mature every year passing.
Yeah,
and the point is that each market. Well, then Kennedy has a great line. He says, the world doesn't need another restaurant, or the world doesn't need another consultant. The world doesn't need another X, right? So Google is capitalizing on that phrase, if you will, by essentially skewing the marketplace towards just a few bigger players. It's going to suck being a small fry increasingly more as the time goes on. Unless you find other ways of advertising, because all these marketplaces become increasingly efficient. And when they become increasingly efficient, the Pareto principle kicks in, and then it becomes a fulfilling,
Yes.
self-fulfilling feedback loop, right? So
You
biggest
just put your
player,
credit card. You just put your credit card in and it goes.
yeah. So basically, the bulk of business will go towards one player, one big company that has a lot of reviews. One company has been on this network for a while. Um, Maybe not one company, maybe three or four or five. But good luck launching a new business with this approach, right? Good luck carving your own niche under the sun, like when there's already established players
Hmm.
on a network like Google. So uh, Google is making it super easy for someone to launch an ad, get some business.
Yeah.
But in an established marketplace with established dominating players, like you're probably not going to get very many impressions or very many phone calls. It's probably not going to, like, it's going to work for a few big advertisers,
Hmm.
and all Google cares about is, well, two things. They obviously care about the stock price, um, which is a function of revenue and a function of user experience. So
Yes.
they don't care
Yes.
about advertisers. We're not customers of Google. Like, we're spending money, like we're giving our money to Google, but we're not customers in their eyes. The customer is someone who's clicking on the ads, and
Hmm.
Google makes sure that they minimize the legal risk. They're pretty much a company run by lawyers at this point.
Hmm.
They need to minimize compliance risk, and they need to maximize the, the experience for the user, someone who's
Yeah.
using the website. They get
Yeah.
you an okay offer. Google doesn't care if it's the best offer, but it has to be okay because it's safe.
They can't concern themselves with if it's the best offer. Hey, it's Eric here from VIP Marketing, and I want to ask you, digital marketer, something. Are you frustrated with your current PPC marketing campaigns? Well, I want to tell you about a tool that we use here at our agency. It's called Optimizer. You have the ability to get your reports up to date and make sure that you get alerts on them. You can even work into workflows as well. So if you're frustrated with your campaigns right now in the reporting systems that you use, I want to give you a 14-day free trial of Optimizer. Go to optimizer.com/go/VIP. So what I want to do now is I want to tell those folks who may be just jumping in, that jump into this podcast right now. Alex and I are having a great conversation, and this part led off to machine learning. We call it AI, which is more, at the forefront of people's mind, but also machine learning and some of the history of machine learning and where it is now and where it's taking us. Alex, I want to ask you this question because we start off talking about AI or machine learning. Do you foresee it, with all the chat GPT and all the other machine learning as this increases and gets better? And you and I know next month it could be chat GPT 5, 6, or 7 that comes out. It's just moving that fast. I saw something where there was a headline that said Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak wants to slow down the ability to making more versions of like a chat GPT. So will this change employment? Because remember, like
Oh, yeah,
even in your struggles when you were coming up, now with all this technology, will it change employment, and where will these people go?
for sure. It will change the employment. Uh, Again, going back to the introduction we attracted to voucher, where did all these people go?
Mm,
If in 2019, I attended a meetup in San Francisco organized by Google, and it
mhm,
was the focus was agriculture, and the
mhm,
focus was machine learning, AI, like all this stuff. There were people like who came from like advisors to presidents. So there was one person who was an advisor to Obama. When Obama was in the White House,
yep,
there were people innovating in different ways,
mhm,
taking over um, former military hangars and just growing food inside, and people growing, taking over large fields, doing unicrop, but automating a lot of things with robots and machine learning,
yeah, mhm,
and people who are doing permaculture type stuff, which is the opposite, moving away from monocrop stuff, and also doing a lot of things with machine learning. It was like it was a crazy insightful thing, But the point was that at that time, again, we're talking pre-COVID, there were less than 5% of population engaged in agriculture. Whereas just 100 years prior to that, the number was closer to 90%. And what they were expecting to happen in the coming 5 years, again, we're talking 4 years ago from today. So in 5 years from then, they were expecting this number to be reduced by, I can't remember exactly, but it's not like to drop another 50%. So to be reduced in half because of all the automation, all the other things. It's happening across all industries. It's happening in the marketing. We thought marketing was going to be safe for a while, you know.
Oh man!
But it's the first one's been disrupted.
I got a buddy who is he had an ad agency. I mean, he's been in advertising in the 70s, 80s, 90s, retired early 2000s. And he said, Eric, you know what? He said, I feel really bad for you guys. And I said, what? I said, why? And he said, when I was marketing and when I had my agency, we only had to worry about radio, TV, and newspaper. Now you guys have so much more to think about and to worry about. He said, so you guys can have that. And he says, you know, now he says, some of these discussions that are happening now, he said, I can only talk about my instinct from working with people. Then he said, I don't even understand all the stuff that's happening now. And he said, I'm not going to try, you know,
that skill is going to be much more valuable in coming years. Like your instinct, your ability to talk human to human, mano a mano.
Wow.
That is something that computers are not going to be able to replace.
Tell me what. Tell the audience why.
Authenticity, you know? Yeah.
That's big. Talk about that more. I want to hear more about that, Alex.
I'm excited about what's coming. I saw this headline about Woz and Musk and all those guys saying, "Hey, put a stop. It's going too fast." I don't know where I stand on this yet. They're way smarter than me. I am, like, when they're concerned, it makes me concerned. However, I think the genie's out the bottle. I don't think we're going to be able to put him back in.
No,
like if we stop, you know, some, I don't know, Colombian cartels will do some version of AI, or the Russians or the Chinese or someone. Right. I mean, we can just stop our progress, but someone else will continue. Yeah. So the genie's out the bottle. Like we've seen the future. Like it was like in November when ChatGPT got released.
Yeah.
What's thrown at us?
Look that fast.
Like we were in shock. Like we just saw the future all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Elon and other people have been talking about this, and like, yeah, interesting, but whatever, right? November of last year, this thing comes out, and we're like, oh crap, this thing's real, right? So we saw the future, and millions of people saw the future, and some kid is gonna work on some open source version of AI and train it on the current data. He's not gonna cut it off at the end of 2021.
No.
It's going to connect it to the internet and release this thing out in a while.
It's going to get to a point where it's going to be within the year and then real time.
Yeah.
But you know, I think, like you said, the genie's out of the bottle, man. This is a great topic too, because I think the rate of which the creation is happening is faster than the learning curve right now that people can take on. You know, and so it's very hard to say that you just want to stop right now and just don't create anymore, because now, I mean, that the learning curve will never catch up. The population can't get as old as fast or learn as fast as it's being created. You know, you're going to have this huge separation, like where you said there's going to be a huge separation where there are going to be people in the middle, like you said, it's going to be very valuable, and those people are going to have instinct that can actually couple with the new age things and the things from, you know, yesteryear.
I mean, I don't know what that future is going to look like, but the future is near. I feel it's coming on fast.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about emergent properties, you can feel that they're happening. You can't really predict which way they're going to go. It's like no one could predict, drive-through ATM machines and drive-through fast food just because they were cars all of a sudden, or because America
So
built the system
exactly.
of interstate highways, right? Those emerging properties that no one could predict, right? It just happened, and all of a sudden our life is different.
Yeah.
But we found a way. Like, I mean, I'm I'm not regretting having all these new things in our lives. Those are conveniences, right? We like conveniences. There's going to be a bunch of conveniences coming from this as well. We will become way more creative. This mundane, mechanical, boring stuff we won't get to do anymore.
Yeah.
Uh,
I agree with you.
that will be replaced by the machines. We will have to focus on the things that only we uniquely as humans can do.
Hmm.
Having a conversation like this, you and I, one on one,
Hmm.
that's going to be more valuable in the coming days than just a generic text article generated by, because you don't know who wrote it
Oh
anymore. You don't know
man.
if it was written by a person
Or AI.
AI.
It
Exactly.
it's going to change things. It's going to change relationships. There was something in Time magazine. This was back in 2000. I want to say 2008. Date myself a little bit. And it spoke about how relationships will change, and it said like people will be more comfortable with digital relationships than they
Yep.
will with face-to-face relationships. And a lot of
Possible.
these things are actually coming true now. I've for example, I've met people around the world, on a podcast, and we've built relationships. And then when you finally get to meet them, it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I had one person I worked with for 7 years, and we finally saw each other at a summit, and it was like, oh man, this is what you look like, or now this is what you feel like.
Yeah.
But
Very different.
I think it's that day and age. Like you said, it's gonna happen so fast, but I never want to lose the value of having a conversation like this. There's just too many things that kind of just come into play. How
And
how do
by the
you?
way, thanks to technology, you and I are able to connect this way. And
Yeah,
I didn't have to fly to where you are. You didn't have to fly where I
yeah.
am. And hopefully, eventually, we'll cross a path in IRL, as they call it these
There you
days,
go.
and have a beverage. But I mean, thanks to technology, I was able to jump on a call like
Mhm,
this and have a conversation. My
mhm,
two agencies, the Google Ads agency and the data agency, Measurebit,
mhm, mhm,
are 100% remote teams. We have team across all the time zones in the US. We have team in Europe and India. My co-founder for Measurebit, he's from New Zealand. Stuff like this.
yeah.
Like, it's just like most of our guys have not met each other in real life. Like, they've
Mhm,
been working together for years and are
mhm.
able to have a working relationships with each other. But most of them have never seen each other in real life.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
no, no, I get it. What now, how are you? I mean, you got Measurebit and you got ClickMakers, right? Measurebit's more of
Yeah.
the does more of the data and the research. ClickMakers is more of the Google side of things. So now, everyone says that they are a results driven agency. Everyone says that. But you actually have like these three C's that I want you to kind of expand on. And your three C's are like clarity, confidence, and cash flow, which are really important. So if you could, I mean, expand on those, and why those three C's, why are they so important?
Well, because you need, well, first of all, we study a lot. We spend a big chunk of our profits goes towards reinvesting back in our personal development, not just the woo-woo stuff, but the actual knowledge of platforms, because the platforms are evolving so quickly.
Hmm.
Google has implemented so many changes. Facebook has been changing things.
Hmm.
Everything has been changing. Like, all this data stuff coming at us very fast. So we set aside the time and money for guys to actually learn new things, launch new experiments, try things out. A lot of our guys learned to run traffic by spending their own money. Like, I told you
Hmm.
my story, how I learned PPC by spending my own money, buying my own ads.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of my guys have a similar story in their past. Like, they tried to launch an agency, maybe they got it to a certain size, and maybe they launched an e-com brand, and it, it worked to a degree, but they got
Hmm.
tired of it and they decided to join my team. But they, or maybe they ran some affiliate deals. So a lot of them spent their own money to learn how to run traffic, and that is a skill that um, you cannot just acquire a skill like this by attending a course or reading a book. So that's super valuable. So that's where the confidence come from, the clarity about numbers. We like a lot of my guys have engineering degrees of different kinds, and they live and breathe data. So we understand data. The first thing we check is conversion tracking. First thing,
Yeah.
second thing when check is like which data points are being used for the training of the pixel and the optimizations. Like,
Hmm.
and if those things make sense, like even before getting to campaign structure and keywords and all this kind of stuff, this is the first thing we check, like starting from the data.
That's the
Uh,
more the clarity side of what you do when it
yeah,
comes into your 3 Cs. Tell me about the confidence side in what you do, and is that coming from you, like you said, reinvesting in your people? Because
yeah.
I
Oh,
know what we do with our teams is we make sure that everyone's certified on the latest and greatest. And because I want us to be constantly educated, because you'll find that they have a lot of confidence when they have to present or perform, right? So, I mean, tell me about your confidence level for your people and how you reinvest in them.
there's several components to it. One of them is a concept called pairing, which comes from the agile method of software development.
Hmm.
We have two people, one keyboard, one screen. So they working together on one piece of code, right? Because so you kind of shadow each other, right?
Hmm.
So one person is typing, the other one's commenting, just having dialogue with the other one.
Yeah.
It seems like a very inefficient way to write software, but
Hmm.
turns out this is the fastest way to develop software.
But you almost
That
have
does
2 sets of eyes on it, right?
totally, and
Yeah.
two brains, and the synergies, and two brains is better than just one brain plus one brain. And it's more like five brains because now you're having a conversation, you're catching each other's bugs, and you're questioning. Like one is going in one direction, but you asking a few questions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
have you considered this, and that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we do a lot of this kind of stuff. I guess it's in a way it's similar to apprenticeship, the old concept of apprenticeship when you had a craftsman, and you had a young apprentice working with him. But this is less of you know, a leader versus follower kind of thing. It's more of a like two people with equal sets of skills, or equally good sets of skills, and the comparable experience, um, working on the same account. It doesn't happen all the time. Like I don't want to sound like this is the only way we do it, but we
Yeah.
create opportunities for them to work together like this, and this is how they learn from each other. Like I very often, like I'm in media buying forums, and some person will show up and he'll say, "Well, I'm pretty experienced. My company, like I'm spending $1 million a month on my ads. How do I get more advanced than I am already? Like, what course do I buy?" There's no course for you to
Yeah.
buy anymore.
Thank you.
Like, there's no book for you to read that will make
Yeah.
you a better media buyer anymore.
They want ads for dummies. You know?
Right.
That doesn't
There's
work
a
anymore.
market for Google Ads for Dummies. There's a market for that. There's no
Yeah.
market for how to become a super ninja Google Ads jockey.
Mhm.
Um, there's no market for that course. No one's going to build it. So
Mm.
how do you gain this knowledge, right? Well, I befriend other agency guys, people who
You
have
can
started
learn from.
around the same. Yeah, I bring them on. Like they come to my agency, talk to my management team and my guys on my media buys. We talk to their guys. Like we exchange things. Like they're competitors, but we
Yes.
work together because
I
that's the
I
only way
love
for us
that.
to learn.
I love that. I love that idea. I have a kind of relationship with someone like that, even in our own hometown. We could compete against one another if we wanted to, but at the end, we're not because the client should win. So, but the way we do it is like, we would share things, because we want each other to win. I think that's a fantastic idea. Now let's talk about the last C that you had, cash flow. Let's talk about that part.
It's all about economics, right? Everything has to make sense economically because that's at the center of what we do. Like our job is so important to the cash flow is the lifeblood of the business. Like we have to understand the numbers that we invest plus our agency fees that the client is paying us. And all this backs out into the financial objective that the business has. Like we're not going for impressions. We're not going for, I don't know, some vanity metric.
Yeah.
Like, there's plenty of vanity metrics. Like we performance agency. We run performance campaigns. So everything has to, like, you have to be able to build a financial model of the business, plug in your numbers, and these numbers need to back out into something that makes long-term sense to this client, to their growth and their financial well-being.
What do you think about? We covered a lot of stuff, and I want to ask you this: the Mad Men days of having agency people with 300 people in the building. Nowadays, with technology, talent pool, not just in your own city but around the world, because I think we both do that. I made this statement a while ago, and I said, if agencies don't change, they will die. And what I mean by that is if they don't change their thinking, change their ways, that it's not about, hey, I brought clicks to your website. People want to know who converted, I feel like long gone are the days of having 300 people in the building now. Now you can almost get it done like Navy SEALs by having 20 people and have a very efficient and effective agency. Those are my thoughts. I could be wrong. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Alex.
I agree with you that, again, going back to the tractor metaphor, right, in agriculture, you can plow so much more land with way fewer people. Like you don't need hundreds of people to plow this, this acreage anymore. You can just have two, right? Like instead of 200. So that is a very good metaphor for what's going on in our industry. We are becoming way more efficient. My model of a media buying agency is, I call it a barbell. Like if you're familiar with Nicholas Taleb books like Anti-Fragile and Black Swan, like he has the barbell model of investing, right? As opposed to diversifying and spreading everything like equally, a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah.
He says, no, this is wrong. Like your investment strategy should look more like a barbell, meaning you have a bunch of stuff in low risk, high probability of getting your money back. So it's very low risk, but it's not going to low risk, low return. That's the bulk.
Right.
Then you have very little in the middle, and then high risk, high reward. So you have the barbell. You have a bunch here, and very little in the middle, right? So the barbell model of a media buying agency for the future is you have creative, you have actual account jockeying, like running ads, like what we do, and data. All the data integration, data science stuff, right? So the data is becoming super important. The creative stuff is becoming super important.
Oh my gosh, Alex, man, let's get on a plane. Let's meet right now. Let's meet right now, Alex. Let's meet right now. I mean, you're speaking my language, man. Go back into that barbell because I think you have it. And I've told people before, like that creative is going to be so important. And then you couple that with that data. Oh my gosh, they love you after that point. Oh man, what a great.
That's the only way to succeed.
Yeah,
really. Like, and you need the data because you need to know if your creative ideas, if they're performing well, right? Because you need a way to judge its performance. You need someone, an arbiter, to tell you like this creative is better than that one, right? Because I'm terrible at predicting which creative is gonna win.
Right.
I'm the worst.
Right, because we're opinionated. We think, "Oh, I like this one. This one may do it." And then people are like, "Well, let's A/B test them," you know?
Exactly. But if you were to come to ask my opinion,
Mhm.
like you would make good money by doing the opposite of that. I promise you that much. Like whatever
Hmm.
I think is going to win, that one's going to lose.
Yep.
You know. So I don't have an opinion. Like I try not to have an opinion anymore, or not to volunteer my opinion. Like
Yeah.
as far as creatives go, but the creative is key in a lot of targeting, like with all this data privacy, with all the things that have been obfuscated or encrypted or just made not available to us anymore. Like a lot of your targeting is going to come from the creative itself,
Yeah.
because your targeting will need to necessarily will need to become broader than what we used to have.
Right.
Like
Right.
Facebook made a revolution. Like when Facebook showed up and Facebook ads appeared, all of a sudden it created a whole bunch of new businesses that couldn't exist before Facebook.
True.
Because
Very
Facebook
true.
gave you the ability to find those tiny needle in giant haystacks.
Mhm.
You could have a market of, I don't know, 85 people worldwide, and all of a sudden
Mhm.
you're in business, right?
Right.
Couldn't
Right.
happen before Facebook.
That's true.
Now
Very,
that is
very,
now
very
that
true.
is going away. That is going away because of
Mm.
iOS 14.5 and plus, because of data privacy, privacy browsing, Brave browser, DuckDuckGo, plugins like Ghostery, all of like this cottage industry of tiny businesses with tiny markets, they're going to have a hard time surviving. And it's going to be it's going to, I think it's going to resemble like the days of printed ads and direct mail, where you couldn't target a market of 85 people worldwide.
Yeah, you
Like
just had to mass send out.
right. So like we're kind of going a little bit in a way. We're going back. Like again, history does not repeat, but it rhymes, right?
Mm.
I think the next decade in our profession is going to rhyme with the madman days in more ways than we would like to admit right now. But I think a lot of things that we will do in the next decade will be some of the statistical models that we will bring from the past, like econometrics or MMM, all this stuff,
Very good. Very good.
right? Like we'll like products that have wide appeal to wider slices of the population
Mhm.
will only be the products that you'll be able to advertise successfully, right?
Wow.
Like those niche things, the tiny niches, small needles in giant haystacks. That
Mhm.
stuff is going to be very difficult, if not completely impossible.
You know
So
what I've what
you go
you
ahead.
brought you brought up Facebook just now, and a lot of marketers, advertisers have complained about Facebook, um, and recently I've noticed that they are trying to make a huge attempt to retain advertisers and keep them, um, because it's not just so much of just the ad platform itself. And we talk about iOS 14 plus and all, and how the privacy matters, but it just seems like the customer service from Facebook. I mean, would you advise people now to still market through Facebook, advertise through
Oh,
Facebook?
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm,
It's a great network. I mean, it's less easy than it used to be.
yeah.
It's very different than it used to be.
Hmm.
Some of the businesses that used to be successful will no longer be successful. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a fantastic channel. It still works. Uh,
It's just too
I
big.
mean, it's mature. Right? It's a
Mm,
mature channel, right?
hmm.
Um, so think about, if you were Don Draper, would you work with that client, right? So you talked
Right.
about Madman
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
So if Don Draper would want to work with this business,
Hmm.
that's probably a good advertiser for you to work with as an agency.
Right.
That's
Right.
probably a good business to launch as a brand owner,
Yeah.
right?
That's a good point.
If
Great point. Great point. Great point. Alex, I think you and I, we could, we need to make a part two to this.
Okay.
So we need to do that at some point, because I think and the reason I say that, Alex, is just there's just too many things that are happening right now in the world of advertising and marketing right now, where uh, everything is not one size fits all, and people don't know the
No,
unique things that they can do. And I think we need to find a way to make a part two and make sure that these episodes air together, because I think there's so much to be said. Like you and I both referenced the same article with Musk and Wozniak, kind of telling people to slow down. And it's not. There's a lot that's going to happen, and I think there's a lot that currently happen, and most importantly, I think there's a lot of dollars being wasted in advertising right now, because people are running just campaigns. They're not running specific campaigns with strategy behind them. And I think that is something that is definitely missing now, is the strategy in it. Because you can hire any agency to make you a dang Google ad. Any agency can do that. Any agency can create, run retargeting for you, so on and so forth. But truthfully, it's the strategy that you're paying for.
absolutely.
It's the strategy that you're paying for, and also how you execute that strategy. Those things are going to be most important. And I think, now, when agencies go from 300 people to 15 people or 20 people, that means there's going to probably be much more agencies out there, and it's going to be harder for brands to be able to choose who they work with, you know? Um, the big brands like the Johnson and Johnsons, they may not run to, the 1,000+ person agency anymore, because they can find someone with 30 people that can do an equally better job, less bureaucracy,
Yeah.
response time, and
Faster to execute.
and just as good of, an
Totally,
investment,
or
pricing
better.
investment. So I think the future will belong to people like us. And
I think it will.
I
To close this conversation with on a positive note, I think um, AI is the best thing that could have happened to us at this historical juncture.
Mhm.
Uh, there's a severe population decline around the world. Well, China is crumbling. The there's way more old people than there's children.
Mm,
The U.S. is about the only country that is not quite in this trend, but the world is getting old. Like Europe is getting very old.
mm.
Canada, it's everywhere. So
Wow.
we are going to be living in a world with a lot of old people who are out of the workforce. There's going to be way fewer of us to provide for all these people. So we have to become way more efficient. The way agriculture transformed itself,
Wow.
from employing 90% of the population to employing less than 5% of the population to
That's
going to
that
like
that
employing the
is
1%
interesting.
of the population.
Wow. That is
So
something I want to definitely look at.
so we definitely it seems to be happening at the right moment. Like it's just serendipitous how it's happening right now. Like when we just like we've been talking about, the planet overpopulating, how we can have as many people. Well, we just took, like you look at the demographics of most developed economies in the big countries, they're
Yeah.
all going down, all on the way down.
Wow.
Um,
Man,
so we'll
that
we'll
that's
need to become way more efficient. We will need to be able to do one person will need to be able to produce as much value as 30 people today in the near future.
I agree. I agree. I totally agree. Alex, man, we're gonna wrap this up, man. And I'm gonna tell you, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation. It's always great to be online with another marketer, especially one I could learn from, and one I'm gonna consider a colleague from this day forth. So Alex, if you
Absolutely.
could tell people how to find you, because you have two brands, and I want people to know about those two brands. But tell them how to find you. Tell them how to find you.
LinkedIn, Twitter, Alex Makarski, Makarski. Facebook as well, sometimes. But email Alex at clickmakers.io and Alex at measurebit.com. So just to explain the difference between the two companies. Clickmakers is the agency that runs ads, and
Mhm.
Clickmakers is a client of Measurebit. So Measurebit is the data group that that works with several agencies beyond just clickmakers and advertisers directly. So Measurebit has its own clients, its own team. It's all, people with machine learning degrees and like data propeller heads who do some really complicated work of integrating different parts of websites, like so that the data flows correctly and goes where it's supposed to go, and builds data warehouses using marketing data from analytics and CRM and all those other places, and allows you to analyze this data and know what's going on in your business. So that's what
Yeah.
Measurebit is about.
That's right. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business.
Yeah.
And I'm a lot of our conversation kind of actually blended a lot between Clickmakers and Measurebit today. So, Alex, I'm grateful to have you as a guest. You are welcome back anytime. Like I told you, we need to do part 2 because there's a lot more things that we need
I'm
to
game.
cover.
I'm game.
We got to definitely
Let's
do
book it.
that. And so to everyone who's out there listening, and also it depends on how you view this. You may be listening to it or you may view it on YouTube. We want to thank you for you giving us your most valuable asset, which is your time. I want to thank my guest, Alex, for being on the line, Alex Makarski, for being on the line with us. Make sure you visit his 2 companies and see what his brands are about. And I want to thank you guys again. And if you feel this podcast has been good to you or it can be good to a colleague or a friend of yours, please share it. I'm going to ask you to share it. And also be kind enough to go on and give us a 5-star review. Thank you to our listeners.
It's been fun. Thank you.
It's been fun, man. This is the AdCast. I want to thank you all for giving us your most valuable asset, your time. And also a huge thank you to our sponsors over at Optimizer. For all of you who are running PPC campaigns and you want to see how to do it better and get better results and actually boost the performance of your campaigns and save time, get a free trial at optimizer.com/go/VIP. Hey guys, I'm back. I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the AdCast. If you didn't, go online, give me a review, and tell me how you want us to make it better for you. And if you did, give us a 5-star rating anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. But I want to thank you for your most valuable asset. That's your time, and thank you for listening. Enjoy the AdCast, and stay tuned for another hot episode coming up soon.